Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you guys are all well. So my A-level students have been asking me different SAT math questions for the last few weeks. I thought I would just make a video on some of the difficult questions that they asked, relatively more difficult questions that they asked, so it could probably help everyone else as well. So let's begin with this. So these are all questions taken from the official College Board website. So they're all official digital SAT math questions. So I hope they help everyone else as well. So let's start with this. So we have this person, Alan, who drives an average of 100 miles each week. That's one piece of information that we have. His car can travel an average of 25 miles per gallon of gasoline. He would like to reduce his weekly expenditure by $5. Okay. Assuming gasoline costs $4 per gallon, which equation can he use to determine how many fewer average miles, which we are denoting by M, he should drive each week? Okay, so how do we think about this? So let me write down the information that's given. It says his car can travel an average of 25 miles per gallon. So we have distance in miles. We can write that here on the side. We can say we have distance in miles. So for 25 miles, he is basically consuming 1 gallon. Okay, 1 gallon of gasoline. And then we are given that it costs $4 per gallon. So for 25 miles, the cost is going to be $4. Now, let me write that here on the side as well. The cost is $4. So this is the information that we have. Okay. And now what we want to do is, so we are given that he drives 100 miles each week. If he wants to reduce the expenditure by $5, what does that mean? What is going to be the number of miles that he would have to reduce from this 100? Now, what we can do is, how we can think about this is, if 25 miles, they cost $4, right? 25 miles, they cost $4. What is going to be the corresponding number of miles for $5, right? Because if $4 corresponds to 25 miles, then we just need to figure out what $5 corresponds to, right? So we can just use simple ratio on this. We can say 25 over M, that should equal 4 over 5, right? Or we can just, like some of you might be used to doing, you can just cross multiply this like this. What does that give you? That gives you 25 over 5 multiplied by 25 into 5 divided by 4, that equals M. So M should be equal to this. Now let's have a look at the options that are given. So what they have done is they have 5 on one side, or 95. We don't have it 95, so that means this is not possible. We can take 5 on one side. So if we keep 5 on the left side and take 4 and 25 on the other side, that gives us 4M over 25. And that's the last option. So in this case, D should be the final result. Okay, so he would have to reduce the number of miles by this much, basically. M equals 25 into 5 over 4. But which is the equation that can give you that result? This is the equation that can give you that result. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Now it says the function f gives the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit that corresponds to a temperature of X kelvins. So we have this function f. It gives the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and it corresponds to X kelvins. Okay. So f is the temperature in Fahrenheit, and X is the temperature in kelvins. If a temperature increased by 9.1 kelvins, by how much did the temperature increase in degrees Fahrenheit? So if X increases by 9.1, by how much is the F going to increase by? Now let's have a look at the function that's given. So it's 9 over 5 multiplied by X minus 273.15 plus 32. It's a linear function, right? We could simplify this if we wanted. If we simplify this, we get 9 over 5X minus 9 over 5 into 273.15 plus 32. So this is actually a linear function that looks like this. F of X equals 9 over 5 times x minus this whole thing. Think of it as y equals mx plus c. So this thing is the constant, this is c. This is the gradient, right? Now what does the gradient tell you? For 1 unit change in x, how much would the function f change by, right? That's what the gradient tells you. The gradient basically tells you, if you increase x by 1 unit, how much is the y going to change, right? That's the rate of change of y with respect to x. Now the gradient is 9 over 5. If we increase the value of x, if x increases by 9.1, how much is f going to increase by? Well, that's the rate of change of f with respect to x. What we can do is we can just multiply 9 over 5 by 9.1, and that's going to give us the result. You can see what that turns out to be. 9 over 5 into 9.1. This should turn out to be 16.38, and that's the answer that we have. Okay, let's move on. Now it says, how many liters of a 25% saline solution must be added to 3 liters of a 10% saline solution to obtain a 15% saline solution? Okay, now what's a saline solution? It's basically the percentage of salt that you have in water. So 25% saline means that if you had 100 liters of water, 25 liters of that would be salt. Now, if you had X liters of water, so let's assume that you have X liters of water, how much would the salt be in that? 0.5 times X. So for this 25% saline solution, we can say the amount of salt is 0.25x. Okay. Now, what is being added to it? 3 liters. So X is the initial amount of water that we have. Okay, X is the initial amount of water that we have. Now it says we are adding 3 liters more to it, but that 3 liters is 10% saline. That means how much salt is going to be in that 3 liters? It's going to be 0.1. So 25%, the decimal value for that is 0.25. For 10%, the decimal value is 0.1. We can say that 0.1 into 3. What should the result be at the end? The final result needs to be 15% saline. What that means is the final amount of salt that you have, that should be 0.15 multiplied by whatever is the total amount of water at this point. Now you had X liters of this first type of water, first saline solution, and you had 3 liters of the second saline solution. What's the total amount of water after this? It's X plus 3. So what you want in this is you want 15% salt. Now what we can do is we can figure out how many liters of this we need to add to 3 liters of a 10% solution. So X is what we need to figure out. Let's figure this out. Well, let's see what that turns out to be. 0.25 times X plus 0.3, and that equals 0.15X plus 0.45. What do we get from that? We have 0.1X, that equals 0.15. And then when we divide it on the other side, X turns out to be 1.5. So this, which was X, turns out to be 1.5. All right. And yeah, that's our final answer. We just write 1.5 here. We don't have any options here, so we're going to write it down like this. That's 1.5. Okay, 1.5 liters. Let's move on. Okay, so now we need to find the positive solution to this given equation. It's an equation that involves the modulus function. Now we have 2 into modulus of 4 minus x plus 3 into modulus of 4 minus x. That equals 25. Now it'll be much easier if we just simplify this. You see, this is the same thing being added, 4 minus x modulus, 4 minus x modulus, thus the coefficient is different. So 2 times this plus 3 times this. We can simplify this as 5 times 4 minus x. And that equals 25. And now we just solve it like we solve any modulus equation. We just remove the modulus sign and put plus minus on any one of the two sides. So let's remove the modulus sign. Let's put plus minus with this. By removing the modulus sign, we have 2 equations from this. One equation is going to be 5 into 4 minus x equals 25, and the other is going to be minus 5 into 4 minus x equals 25. Let's just solve these 2 equations and see what we get from this. 20 minus 5x, that equals 25. And the first equation gives us 5x equals minus 5, and x turns out to be -1. Now that's not possible because we want a positive solution, so that's not the answer. Let's try the other one. That gives us -20 plus 5x equals 25, and we get 5x equals 45 from that, and the value of x turns out to be 9. That's the positive solution that we're looking for. We will just write 9 there as our final result. Okay, let's move on. Now we have a quadratic equation. In this, a and c are constants. The graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane is a parabola that opens upwards. And it has a vertex at the point hk where h and k are constants. If k is less than 0 and f of -9 is equal to f of 3, which of the following must be true? C less than 0, a greater than or equal to 1, and we have these different options. Okay, let's try to process this information. We are given that the function is ax squared plus 4x plus c. So we have one coefficient given there. This is 4. And it's a parabola that opens upwards. That means it's a U-shaped curve like this. It looks like this. Right? It's a U-shaped curve. And in this U-shaped curve, we are given that the vertex, that means the turning point, is hk. So this vertex is hk. Now, k is less than 0. If k is less than 0, what that means is the y coordinate of this turning point, this k, this is negative, right? This is negative. If the y coordinate is negative, that means x-axis is going to be above the turning point. That means maybe somewhere here. So this curve is going to intersect the x-axis at 2 points. So that's what we understand until this point. And we're also given that f of -9 equals f of 3. Now, using that, what we can actually do is we can figure out the turning point of this function, because if f of -9 equals f of 3, that means the y value when x equals -9, so x equals -9 and x equals 3, both of them give us the same y value. The y value for both of them is going to be the same. That's what they're saying. Okay, so if, for instance, we had -9 here, let's say that was here, and then we had perhaps 3 here, the y value is the same for both of them. Okay, now since the curve is symmetric, we can figure out that the turning point is going to be exactly in the middle of these two values. -9 plus 3 divided by 2, that's -6 over 2. This value, the x coordinate of the turning point, that is supposed to be -3. So we also figure out the value of h from there. That turns out to be -3. So we know the turning point as well now. The turning point is -3 and k. We don't know the value of k, but at least we know the x coordinate of the turning point. So this is now -3k. Okay, now how can that help us? So we have this function given. What we can do is we can write down the equation in this form. Remember that completed square form. It's a into x minus h whole square plus k. Since we have the turning point given, we can use that turning point here to write down another form of the same equation. What do we get from that if we try that? Y equals a into x minus h. The value of h is now -3, so we can put -3 there. It becomes x plus 3, right? -3, that becomes x plus 3 whole squared plus k. Now let's simplify this and see what that gives us. A into x squared plus 6x plus 9 plus k. If we were to simplify this further, that gives us ax squared plus 6ax plus 9a plus k. Okay, now let's try comparing this with the function that's given. Yeah, so we can find the value of a from this, because the function that's given is ax squared plus 4x plus c. A corresponds to a. That does not help much, but what we are given is that 6a, this corresponds to 4. We can find the value of a from this. So 6a should be equal to 4. That means a is equal to 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3. Now what are they saying? They're saying a should be greater than or equal to 1. Now this is not greater than or equal to 1. That means this is not correct. Option 2 cannot be true. That means this cannot be the correct option, and this also cannot be the correct option. Okay, now it's either A or D. Now we need to do something about C. We need to figure out what C should be. Now if we compare these constants, let's see what we get from that. C and 9A plus K. We have the value of A now, so that is something that we know at least. Let me write that here. We know that C should be equal to 9A plus K, and if we were to put the value of A here, it becomes 9 into 2 over 3 plus K, and this becomes C equals 6 plus K. So we have C in terms of K now. Now the question says K is negative, and that's why we could draw this U-shaped curve like this, that the turning point is below the x-axis. C equals 6 plus K. Now, since K is supposed to be less than 0, if we make K the subject here, that gives us K equals C minus 6. Now, since K is less than 0, we can say C minus 6 should be less than 0. And that gives us C less than 6. Okay, so we are getting C less than 6, and the question says C less than 0. Now, they are basically asking which of the following must be true. Now, we are getting C less than 6, and they've given us C less than 0. Now, C less than 6 means the one possible value of C could be 4, for instance. Now, does that satisfy this condition? It does not. So, does this statement necessarily have to be true? No. C has to be less than 6, yes, but C does not necessarily have to be less than 0. It could be some positive value as well. So, this is also not necessarily true. It could be true, it's possible that it's true, but it's not necessary, it's not must that it should be true. And they're asking which of the following must be true. So the first option is also not something that must be true. So that means the only option that we are left with then is D, that's it's neither 1 nor 2. And that should be the final result that we have here. Let's move on. Now we have this expression. In this expression above, it says B and C are positive integers. If the expression is equivalent to x plus b and x is not equal to b, which of the following could be the value of C? Okay, so B and C are positive integers. These are positive integers. And they're giving us that this expression x squared minus C divided by x minus b, this should equal x plus b. Now, let's try to simplify this. We get x squared minus c equals x plus b into x minus b. What does that give us? That gives us x squared minus c equals x plus b into x minus b. That's a plus b into a minus b. We can write that as a squared minus b squared. So this becomes x squared minus b squared. And that basically gives us, everything gets cancelled and we're left with c equals b squared. Okay. Now b and c both have to be positive integers. Now what are they asking us? They're asking us which of the following could be the value of C. Which of the following could be the value of C. Now we have one equation, we can't really find a specific value of C, but which of these values is possible? Now C is equal to b squared and b is also supposed to be a positive integer, and that means this C value has to be a perfect square, right? Some positive integer squared, that should give us C. So C has to be a perfect square. So you just look at these values and see which of them is a perfect square. 4 is a perfect square, 6, 8 and 10 are not. So the only option that we've got here is A, because that's the only perfect square. Okay, so the final answer that we have in this case is 4 therefore. Okay, alright, let's move on. Now we have this expression 4x squared plus bx minus 45 where b is a constant. It says this expression can be written as hx plus k into x plus j, where h, k and j are integer constants. Which of the following must be an integer? Okay, so we have this expression given, and we are given that this can be rewritten like this. H, K and J are all integers. Which of the following must also be an integer? So we have B over H, B over K, 45 over H. Okay. Now, what we can do is, this is how we can start. We can say 4x squared plus bx minus 45. This is the original expression that's given. We could simplify this expression as well and see what that gives us, and then try to compare the two and see if that helps. So let's simplify this expression. hx into x, that's hx squared. hx into j, that's 8xj plus k times x plus k times j. Okay, now what's the coefficient of x squared that we're getting? We're getting hx squared. That means the value of h is supposed to be 4. Okay, let's actually simplify this first. We could write that expression as hx squared, and then we could take x the subject, x common. That would leave us with hj plus k inside, and we have x here and then kj outside. Now this gives us that the value of h is supposed to be 4, right? When we compare these two, the coefficients of x squared, and if we compare the coefficients of x, that gives us b equal to hj plus k. Now that's too many variables. Let's compare the last one. The constants, minus 45 equals k times j. Minus 45, that should equal k times j. Okay, now all of them are integers, h, k and j. They're all integer constants. That means that which of the following must be an integer? K times j is equal to minus 45. What that means is k and j, they both have to be factors of 45, right? Because they are integers, and when we multiply them, the result that we're getting is minus 45. So they could either be 145 with one of them being negative, right? So it could be minus 1 and 45, or maybe 1 and minus 45. That's okay. But the numbers, the magnitudes are going to be 1 and 45. Let's keep this as minus, for instance. Another possibility could be minus 315. Then we could have minus 5 and 9. And that's it. The other way around as well. These are the 6 possible combinations that we could have. Now, what are they giving us here? 45 over k. So k and j, what we understand is, so that's not very helpful. What we understand is that k and j, they should be factors of 45. That is a must, right? That k and j have to be factors of 45. Now, if k is a factor of 45 and j is a factor of 45, let's see if that can give us anything here. Yeah, so 45 over h, that does not help. 45 over h, we know that cannot be an integer, so this is not possible. But 45 over k, since k is supposed to be a factor of 45, 45 over k is going to be an integer. In fact, you could also think of it like this. We have 45 over k here. If we made j the subject here, and that gives us minus 45 over k. Now, since j is an integer, since the left side is an integer, that's given here, then the right side should also be an integer. So 45 over k, therefore, is an integer here as well. Okay, so that means it's part D here. It's option D here. That is the one that should be correct. Okay, so I'm going to continue with this in the next video. I'll be doing some more questions, but I have to attend a meeting right now, and I'll be back in a few hours and do some more questions after this. I'll just show them to you. So these are some of the next questions that I have lined up, but I'll be doing them in the next video then. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Allah Hafiz.